Hey, what's up, Bing fam? Today I'm bringing you what are the biggest issues tattoo artists face in this day and age. So I think one of the biggest issues that I experience and the kind of stuff that I hear from other artists is the expectations that some artists have, especially with what we see on the internet and what we see on Instagram, that people want to see a full sleeve done in like one day. There's some artists out there who are saying that they can finish a full sleeve tattoo in 8 hours, right? And they'll like show a video of them from the wrist all the way to the shoulder in about 8 hours. Sure, maybe there's somebody out there who can do that, right? But the average artist isn't going to be able to do that, and that kind of sets. I think artists like that shouldn't approach their social media from that standpoint and from the headspace of, oh, look at me, I'm such a badass, look at what I can do, because then there's people out there who are going to expect that from other artists. Obviously you're not going to live in the same area but still have access to see these tattoos and people's full sleeves finished in whatever amount of time. And so the expectation, what you're able to do with the amount of time that you have, everybody's skin is different, and you don't really know exactly what you're going to be running into until you actually get into the tattoo. And that's something that is also something that other artists are doing a lot more of, is having consultations ahead of time to set proper expectations. Hopefully everybody's doing this, but you let people know what you're going to run into. I like to tell people, I don't know exactly how long the tattoo is going to take until I get into the tattoo and understand your skin. Everybody's skin is different. Your lifestyle could also affect the way a tattoo hits the way a tattoo is applied to the skin and how long it could take. There's some people that maybe they're construction workers or in the sun all day. Their skin's going to be a little bit tougher than somebody who's maybe an office worker. And genetics and ethnicity can also be a factor, right? So all these little variables that come into play that you want to set proper expectations with your client. If you're talking about a sleeve or a larger piece, you kind of want to set the expectation that there might be more time needed on the tattoo. For realism tattoos, I think it's a good idea to let people know later on you should definitely come back for a follow-up session so we can darken the blacks, brighten the whites, and so on and so forth, right? So I think being that, people are expecting so much of tattoo artists these days, you do want to set proper expectations, during the consultation or before the appointment. Personally, I think that you should do a consultation with every single client. If you're taking on bookings for the future, if you're a walk-in shop artist and you're doing mostly walk-ins, you don't need to worry yourself too much with this information. This is more for the artist who has a solid clientele base, and there's people that are wanting to get booked with you ahead of time. You're booking 2 to 3 months out, even up to a year out, and so you do want to have consultations with people ahead of time, also to save yourself from certain clientele. It could be that you and that person just don't mix, right? And I've had it before where I take on a client knowing well that there's already red flags popping up while we're creating the design, and I'm sending them a mock-up and we're just not seeing eye to eye. And then the day of the tattoo comes, I'm telling myself, oh, it should be fine, whatever. But we already weren't seeing eye to eye, and so it starts to go downhill very quick. And I don't want to experience that anymore. I don't want to feel any sort of negativity while I'm going into a tattoo. I want to feel excited. I want to feel creative. I want to feel up to the task, right? And so if you run into negative situations with a possible client ahead of time, you want to nip that in the butt right away. And so setting proper expectations is great. One of the things that I like to tell my clients is, if we get to a place where you and I aren't connecting on the design and we're like already 10, 15 edits down the way, and it's just not really working out, I think at that point I will give you your deposit back, and let me see if I can connect you with another artist that might be a better fit for you, because my goal is for you to get the tattoo that you want, that you're going to love, even if it's not with me, right? And I mean that. I actually do tell clients that. It's unfortunate that you get to that point, but it feels better for that person that you get to that point than, oh, it'll be fine. And I know that can be hard, especially when you're doing this as your livelihood, trying to earn money and trying to pay for your bills and everything. So I know that that's a sort of like a hard place to be. But if you're going to commit to giving the best work possible and posting the best work possible, then this is an approach that you might need to consider. Number 2 is physical strain and mental health. As you get older, ergonomics is going to be a huge thing for you. Getting the right chair, getting the right machine for yourself, a good chair for your clients, for them to sit longer hours if need be. There's a lot of different aspects of this that you have to consider if you're going to be doing it long term. I'm 31 now, and I do plan on tattooing maybe another 20, 30 years maybe. I'm not sure if I'll be, if I get to 60 and I'm still tattooing, I think that'd be cool, man. But how am I going to be able to last that long? One of the approaches that I take is I try to hit the gym. Maybe I don't eat the best, and I could work on that, but moving your body around and doing stretches, I always start my day with going to the gym, and I start my day with stretches, right? And that helps out a whole lot, right? Throughout the day, during your longer sessions, you want to get up, move your body around, stretch. I like to stretch my neck out a little bit, make some movement, try to, move my hands and stretch my hands out, my fingers. Some people like to do some wrap, some Sensi wrap on your wrists, on your thumbs. But you got to consider those things so that way you can have longevity and be able to have the stamina to finish, all the work that you're planning on doing. Another big thing is, along with that, you also want to consider taking, a self-care day, right? Where you take some time for yourself, where you're not going to answer any emails, any texts, any DMs. Talk to your mentor or your shop owner. Let them know that, hey, this day, nothing. I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to take on nothing. I need to take my day for myself, and whatever that consists of, do it. But do it intentionally, right? Sometimes we have the day off and we don't intentionally think I need to rest, right? Or I need to enjoy myself and not feel the stress of tattooing as much. And so these are some things to consider if you plan on doing this for a while. Another big issue that people are running into is technology and all of the things that come along with that. The access to these technologies and how powerful some of these things can be. Some people are using them and just tattooing whatever they can get from these AI generated or 3D rendering or whatever you want to call it, right? They're just going ahead and just tattooing it like that. And I can see where that, for me, I disagree with just tattooing what you create on AI or anything like that. I do think you should at least put it into, Procreate or Photoshop and change it up a little bit, print it out, maybe even take some marker on the skin after you place your stencil and add some different things to change it up a little bit so that way you can add a little bit more of artistic flair to it instead of just boom, tattooing what you print out. Because, I feel like that's lazy. You know what I mean? That's not exciting. That there's no creativity in that. I think that you're kind of just putting it all on the AI to create your design, or all on the reference, or all on the whatever you want to call it, right? So whenever I use AI, I try to at least make some edits to it, change it up a little bit. That's usually like my version 1 or version 2. I might make small iterations from there, and then I put it onto my Procreate and like work it out, trying to change the lighting, try to change the darks and the mids and all that kind of stuff. So that way you create your own unique design that nobody else is going to find anywhere else. And so one of the things too that's happening with a lot of artists, similar to me, we're hybridizing these processes and these softwares to, you're still using it as a tool, but you're not relying fully on it because you're still going to be doing the tattoo and putting it on skin. So you still got to be able to complete that. And if you use all these tools and you're not able to put it on skin, then there's no point in actually using these tools. Another big issue that tattoo artists are facing nowadays is oversaturation. And I remember back in the day, if there was, another shop that opened up, the things you heard from other artists was, hey, go find out who they are so that way you know your competition, right? But now there's so many that you can't even figure out your competition, right? And it's hard to tell what people are actually looking at and looking for. I've seen some stories and some Reddit posts of some areas where they're having to close shop, because there's so many other artists out there, or people are driving to the Instagram, to the Instagram influencer tattoo, or people are driving out instead to other artists who maybe have a bigger following because they see them on the internet. And so that's like a factor that's coming into play. And so considering that there's these shops that aren't doing as well, but there's other people who are, you do have to consider what are they doing that you're not doing, right? And what are the things that they're offering at those other shops? What social media content are they putting up? I know it's hard, especially for a lot of artists. I think a lot of artists are very introverted, and they, kind of get maybe a little scared of putting yourself out there. But that's a huge tool. That's a huge thing. I think if you're not doing social media in any industry, you're losing out, right? On top of that, the luxuries and different things that these other artists and other shops are offering, along with good customer care, is going to be huge. So if you're not implementing those things, or you think to yourself, oh, what's wrong with the way we run shit? You know what I mean? Like my place has good customer service. Well, it might be, if you're the one experiencing less clientele, then it's time to look at yourself and say, is there something I'm doing wrong, right? And they always say, the first step is admitting that you're wrong, or the first step is admitting, and then you go from there. Another big risk that the industry is facing is schooling, licensing, and regulation in the tattoo industry. There's a lot of mixed opinions about licensing and regulation and all that kind of stuff. I do think some regulation is good. I do think that some people, some shops need somebody to come by on a regular basis to see how they're doing, to be able to show that they are a legit shop and people are going to get legit work and be clean the whole time. And then there's the other side, like Oregon having a tattoo school, and then you have to complete a tattoo school to be able to get your licensing for tattoos. What is cool about that is that they're allowing tattoo shops to become a school, but not building tattoo schools. I do think that's a better way to go about it. I don't know that doing school and doing it through the state is going to be very attractive for a lot of artists, especially the ones that have already been doing it in that area. I'm sure that there's plenty of artists there who just don't like that idea at all, right? And it's even to the level that local regions and local areas might have varying laws, which could change and cause confusion on the risks that come with tattoo shops and what they could run into. But the consensus is that there's still a sort of like a push for, apprenticeship sort of models, and like, what are the things that you should be teaching and showing, up and coming tattoo artists, and even having some regulation that comes along with that, right? So more and more artists are actually kind of asking for that, and they're looking for that. And I think, some of the old school tattoo artists, they don't like it. They don't want to see that happen. It's kind of like the less government sort of mentality. But I think a little bit of regulation is going to help, in the sense that we should all be clean and hitting a certain standard, right? Another issue that the tattoo industry is facing is rising costs and sort of static pricing, right? So the common pricing is about $100 for $100 an hour, which actually has been the price rate for a very long time. I'm thinking, I could be wrong, but even since the 50s, a good tattoo artist would be charging about $100 an hour, right? And now you're starting to see that the pricing for tattoo supplies, gloves, inks, and all that kind of stuff is rising. A good tattoo machine will set you back about $1,200 nowadays, right? The rising costs of the supplies is kind of affecting how some artists are experiencing, the financial side of getting into tattoos and making this a suitable living. One big thing that'll help you if you feel like you're running into this sort of issue is that tattoo should pay for itself. If you're an up-and-coming tattoo artist, know that every tattoo that you do should be able to pay for the supplies that you need for that month, and hopefully even further, right? Don't spend on anything else before you spend on your supplies. You shouldn't be going to your artist and your mentor or whoever to ask for supplies. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's great. You know what I mean? Most people are going to say yes, and you're going to be able to borrow supplies and all that kind of stuff, but it should pay for itself. Think of it, if you were by yourself in your own tattoo shop, would you have everything that you need to be able to complete this tattoo? That's the mindset that you should have. Now, every deposit that you get, and if you are an artist who's booking out in advance and you're not taking deposits at least 30% of the total cost, we can do a separate video where we talk about how you can price yourself based off of hourly, because I know that that's a big factor. It's like, how do I know what 30% is if I don't know how long the tattoo is going to take? Right. Well, there's different ways you can go about it, but that'll be a whole separate video. If you're not taking a deposit for future bookings, then you know the types of issues you're going to be running into. But let's get that out the way. Let's say you do take deposits. Take that deposit either in cash form or in your bank account, and do not spend it until the day of the appointment. You will see a dramatic change in how much you're earning based off of what you charged, simply by holding on to those deposits. Also, if there's ever a situation where you don't feel comfortable working with somebody anymore, and it feels shitty to keep the deposit, and you feel like you'd be better off just rinsing your hands of the situation, you have it, and you're able to give it back to that person and send them along their way, right? I do that periodically, where I still run into it, where maybe there's a client that, as we got into the designing and all that kind of stuff, it's just not really heading in the right direction. I'd much rather just give it to them. And I know I have it because I didn't spend that money. And then from there, every tattoo, now that you got the full amount on the day of the tattoo because you kept your deposit and the person paid you, hopefully you got a tip also, but don't be expecting it from every client. You're going to then take that deposit amount, either split that in half or the whole thing, and put that away. Put it away somewhere, put it under your bed, put it in a savings account. Start building something little by little, and you're going to see a huge shift in your earning potential. It's simple things, but if you change that, you won't ever have to worry from then on. Another problem that I think has persisted in the tattoo industry is like competition and favoritism in the tattoo shop, in the actual shop. I can't stand that shit. I don't like when I'm in a place where I feel like I'm competing with everybody else. What we strive for in our studio is, bringing each other up. Even if we exchange like tips and tricks, we're not doing it from a space of like, hey man, you're fucking up, but we're doing it from a place of like, yo, this helped me out. Let me know what you think it might help you out, right? And so we're building each other up, helping each other, and not creating this sort of like looking over your shoulder feeling drama and shit talking and that kind of stuff. We don't stand for that kind of stuff in our studio. But unfortunately, it's prevalent in the tattoo industry. Unfortunately, I hear stories all the time of how it is in other shops and how people are made to feel by the owner or maybe by the men in the shop, right? And sort of, or even by the demographic in the shop. That's another factor, especially nowadays in what's happening in our country. The demographic could also be a factor, right? So you have to consider all those things. When you're thinking like, am I feeling good where I'm at in this studio? Do I feel like I'm in a positive space to be creative and do my best work for this client, right? I'm not the only one thinking this way, which is really cool to see, because when I started back in 2012, I felt like I was alone. I was on an island, and my way of thinking, like nobody else thought that way, right? But now you're starting to see more and more shops and artists being very positive, very inclusive, progressive in their way of thinking. And what you're also seeing too that comes out of that, because some people had bad experiences at other shops, they started creating their own shops, and they're doing really well because they take that experience of the things that they don't want to do, and then they shape their shop around that. So then they're creating incredible experiences for their clients and for the artists working there. And I've seen some shops that open up, with 2 or 3 artists. Within the next 2-3 months, they have 15 artists in that shop, right? And it's cool to see, because then those people then become a whole team, and they're doing team outings and that kind of stuff. And it's really, I think it gives a little bit of hope in especially what's going on these days in the world, right? And so that's the biggest issues that tattoo artists are facing in this day and age. Let me know if there's something else that you've been running into. I want to hear from you, because I like to share ideas and get a better understanding what's actually happening in the tattoo industry. Don't forget to hit like. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to see every video, don't forget to hit the bell icon, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.